It opens in theaters this weekend, but does it scare up a good review from us? We'll let you know right here on Screen Junkies News. I'm Roth Cornet.
What's up, guys? JTE here.
And poor Dan Merle wasn't able to see this glorious movie yet. Spoiler alert, I liked it.
Double spoiler, I liked it too. And I gotta say, I was a little worried going in only because of my feelings about Mama. Like, I thought it was a competent made horror film, but this was like hype train to another level. Like, people love this material, so I feel like the pressure was really on the director.
Yeah, let's talk about our expectations going in, because I think that is going to be a big part of this. Clearly, there are a lot of people that are invested in Stephen King's book. Many of us have seen the miniseries. I'll have to say, for me, Tim Curry's Pennywise was something that was just sort of psychologically embedded on me at a very young age. This is one of the most iconic horror figures truly ever created. Now, it was in a miniseries that was in many ways not that good and not all that impressive, particularly the second half of the series. But Pennywise himself is a figure of terror, and I didn't think anybody else could capture what he did.
Well, I will say this, like, he is a horror icon. I totally agree with that. Even if you go back and watch that series and it doesn't quite hold up, his performance really stands out for me. And I think when this trailer hit, and I think it reached like over 190 million views, it broke records because people have not forgotten how terrifying Pennywise is. So I do got to give it to Bill Skarsgård. He had big shoes to fill in. Big clown shoes, if you will. I beat you to the pun.
You did. And you know what? My puns are just not on point today, so I'll try to get better for the rest of the review. I agree. And that's one of the things that most impressed me about this film, is that I did think that Bill Skarsgård was able to sort of bring his own flavor to this character. He wasn't aping what had been created before. He was really scary. And he had a slightly different tone. Let's talk about the film as a whole, though. And that's where I think it's really, you talked about the director, whose previous work I agree was Mama, which was competently made, to your point.
Completely.
But it wasn't all that impressive. So what he did here sort of blows my mind, because it is this perfect blend of the 80s coming of age story about a group of misfit friends who don't belong anywhere, plus crazy psycho killer clown.
Yes.
And it is terrifying. It is heartwarming. It is the Losers Club. Is something that you can relate to in the way that you could with Stand By Me, which is another Stephen King adaptation.
Totally.
So I felt like that could have felt like too tonally dissonant feel, but it didn't. In other words, Super 8. Super 8 in many ways felt like two different movies.
Very uneven movie. Yes,
right?
I agree.
Felt like two different movies slammed together because it was two different scripts slammed together. This is the perfect melding of the horror genre and the coming of age genre.
Yeah, I got to give it to him. He really got the characters right. And I think that's what makes any good horror film really kind of connect to the audience, is if you actually care about the people that are in danger. And I really cared about these kids. Yeah, they're a little bit of characteristics of like, kind of like, again, 80s characters who just kind of fit a certain mold. But it worked for me in this movie. I'm not quite sure why. And I think when we look back at Mama, the source material wasn't as good as what he has here. He has a fantastic novel to go off of, and he could literally just pick out the pieces that he thinks might work in the film. And I think he did an expert job of doing that. When I'm watching this, I'm just like, not only was it scary, and it's not like the scariest movie of the year for me, but it does have some good scares.
What's the scariest movie of the year for you?
I still would have to go Annabelle Creation.
Yeah, I agree.
It is just like that movie. I was literally like clawing my chair seat in the movie theater, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This movie doesn't quite reach that level for me, but I will say I was more thoroughly entertained throughout this movie. I laughed a lot more than I thought I was going to laugh in this.
Yeah,
like, it's very funny.
It is funny. It is funny. And you know what's it's interesting, because I had that conversation with a friend of mine as well, where one of my favorite movies this year, full stop, is the psychological horror Get Out.
Oh yes, great film.
But as far as just a straight up classic kind of like jump in your seat and scare you horror movie, Annabelle I thought was scarier. But
yes, totally.
I also think it was because I went in with very few expectations to that film.
Good point.
And so it captured me. I went in with a lot of expectations about Pennywise and what he means to me. So I will say this film is scary. Pennywise is scary. There's some great jump scares. But it's the total feeling that you're left with at the end that I think is so viscerally satisfying. It's what these kids have gone through together.
Exactly. Yeah, so he doesn't go away from the actual character, the arc of the characters. What I love about it, just as, you know, we want to call him Pennywise, or we want to call him, it's the fact that he goes after what you're afraid of.
Yes.
And that tells you so much about that character. So every time every kid literally has to face his fear in this movie. And to me, that was like the most fascinating thing about it. it's not, there are some jump scares, and some of the things, because they're so specific to that character, aren't always super scary to me. Like there's one character who's kind of like, he's worried about disease. His mom kind of fed that into his brain. And the things, leopards are like what he's scared of. Like to me, that wasn't the most scariest thing when I saw the character, but I understand what that character is going through because how much he's afraid of that one thing. To me, that's why I thought this movie did a really good job of really tapping into those kids' psychological dreams and nightmares.
Yeah, I agree. And they also have, I mean, they sort of have their own trauma that they're experiencing in the real world that relates to how Pennywise is dealing with them. There's a mirror to that, which I think is like, it is this great kind of it's a horror movie, but it is like a metaphor for growing up and facing your fears and all of the trauma of growing up is all in there. So I thought that was great. These are great you bring up Bill Skarsgård, who is this Pennywise, and he definitely rose to the occasion. But this is a great cast all across the board. Yes,
totally. The kids really, I mean, with child actors, sometimes it can be hit or miss. I feel like every one of these kids brought just enough to the table, and they're not all of them are asked to do the most like dramatic work here. Like the kid from Stranger Things, I forget his name, but he's a great kind of comedic relief in this movie. Like he's almost like the audience surrogate. Like there's times where he's like, what the F is going on? And I'm like, that would be me if I was there right now. And I thought he did a really good job of filling in that role as the audience.
Finn Wolfhard.
Finn Wolfhard
is his name.
What an awesome name.
And the other thing that was cool about him was that the character was so different than Stranger Things.
Yes, I was worried about that going in. I was like, oh, they're just going to redo Stranger Things with these kids. No, he's a totally different character. Totally different than when he's in Stranger Things. And that's kind of what I liked about it.
And I think that Stranger Things, in an interesting way, sort of tunes in a generation that maybe not as familiar with these sort of coming of age stories for what they can expect from this movie, right? So Stranger Things is the TV version of this in some ways, right?
Totally. I think the Duff brothers at one point were attached to this movie and they lost it and they actually went to their Netflix show.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the producers this was like, damn, we probably should have kept those guys. But after seeing the end result, I'm glad they got this director because he really seems like he knew the material, he loved the material, and he understood it was more about the characters than just jump scares.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it's a hit.
Andrew Muschietti, I think, has a huge career ahead of him after this film.
This movie's going to destroy the box office.
It's going to kill at the box office, and I think some of the things that we've been saying is why. I think it'll speak to across generations. It'll speak to the people that are the Stephen King fans, that remember Pennywise, that grew up with those coming-of-age stories, and the people, younger generation, that are ready for a new, fresh horror movie, and that have been prepped for it in some ways by Stranger Things. That's what's interesting.
Totally agree. And, I revisited Stand By Me, too, and, Stephen King just really knows how to write these characters, and the dialogue is what he really makes believable. Like these sound like conversations kids would have out on camping or on an adventure, and that just adds to the realism for me. Like that's why when I watch Stand By Me again and this, you could see a lot of parallels with the bully, the kids, the relationships, and them kind of growing up.
And a lot of this is things that we've been through, like I said, except for the killer combat. I hope you haven't been through that. I swear people will sometimes just send me gifts of Pennywise to freak me out because that is how much I've made it known that this is the most terrifying figure to me in the history of cinema.
That's saying
Pennywise. But this adaptation is quite good. Full stop. It's great storytelling, great acting. This is relationships and characters that you're invested in a story that has a resolution that I think you'll enjoy. I'll just leave it at that. I won't say anything else about where the book may or may not go from there.
Yeah, and I'll just add this. It's one of the more entertaining films of the year. Like, I never at one point did I want to look at my watch or check my phone or see what was going on. Sometimes these movies, and it's over 2 hours. I think it's about 2 hours, 15 minutes. I was never bored. And to me, that's why I think it's going to be hit across all audiences because it's funny, it's scary, it's got some touching moments, kind of has everything you want in like a good horror/drama.
And boy, does the box office need it right now.
It does.
And again, you got to take these things for what they are. This is an adaptation of it. It's a horror movie.
Yes.
It's a very good. It achieves what it sets out to achieve very expertly. And from both of us, it sounds like recommendation. Go see this in the theaters.
For sure, absolutely. Go see it, whether it's on a date, your friends, family, whoever just wants a good scare and a good story. And I think that's the most important thing. A good story, well told. You're gonna love this movie.
Not for kids. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Roth Cornet again.
I'm JTE, aka Not Dan Morrow. Thanks for watching.
Poor Dan. He'll see it soon. He actually wanted to see it in the theaters. Long story. We will see you next time here on Screen Junkies News. In the meantime, talk to us on Twitter and all of the other things. Click here for more awesome Screen Junkies news and click the logo to subscribe.